From the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network studios in Des Moines, this is Iowa Ag Matters. I'm Riley Smith. In today's show, I visit with Iowa Democratic candidate for Lieutenant Governor Dave Muhlbauer. Dustin wraps up his conversation with Iowa Corn Growers Association President Mark Mueller, and Mark talks with United States Attorney General Todd Blanche. Now let's welcome in our hosts, Mark Magnuson and Dustin Huffman.
Well, Dustin, yesterday we hit some lofty levels in that price for corn as we were with the front month looking at $5 corn, and that is something that has been out of the picture really for a long time. I believe you have to go back 3 years to get to that point on the board, and that was good to see. We also saw those gains for soybeans yesterday as well, with a lot of things happening around the world that were contributing to that. We also have to remember that we have the big meeting coming up between President Trump and President Xi at the end of September. But as you look at the markets here today, we've regressed a little bit, and maybe that's just a kind of a natural correction after we were so, moving to the upside so high yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, we did see some corrections. I mean, soybeans bouncing back, after a really bad open of the week. But yeah, today we're seeing a little more correction again. Soybeans are right in that ballpark of, I want to say about 2 to 3 cents lower. Corn was about 2 to 3 cents lower as well. So, I mean, all in all, not like a terrible situation. But when you've got December corn up over 5.25, that's definitely some news that farmers would like to hear, and hopefully going to lock in some of those prices here, or even March delivery. You want to look at that 547. May was 5.5 as well. So, but then it starts to taper off again. So, if you're going to lock in some decent delivery prices, I would say that you would want to knock it out there in that March to May contract. Of course, that's as it is right now. But of course, as we talk with the folks at agmarket.net and during our afternoon daily market summary, and of course, I'm sure you talking with Comstock Investments today too, Mark. That the message is make sure you got all your options on the table, because now it might be your best time to start marketing again, take advantage of those high prices, and hopefully before the dust settles once again. Because if we get some resolutions to some of these conflicts and some of these trade deals, things could reverse pretty quickly. Speaking of which, we got Joe Camp of Comstock Investments talking with Mark about the grains.
Joined today by Joe Camp of Comstock for the opening market discussion. Joe, what's happening with the trade in the grains after we saw some $5 corn on the front month yesterday?
That rally is taking a breather so far. It's a long session. It's still really a long week to go in this type of market as we head into the end of the week, soon to the end of the month of August. So we'll take that into account about how it might impact speculative decision making. That's probably part of the early weakness, some general profit taking after the substantial run to the upside. We're talking about above $5. That means new contract highs for corn futures. Also, new highs for the move yesterday coming in on soybeans as well. And then the big outstanding day for wheat, limit up 45 cents higher for the first couple of Chicago wheat contracts on this news that the Russia-Ukraine war only likely to heat up, and to include still the explicit targeting of each side's infrastructure related to exports out of that key Black Sea region. So spiking the wheat yesterday. We did have follow through overnight, but they've come down, and now wheat futures bouncing back and forth between higher and lower. So what direction that ultimately ends up will have a large bearing on where the corn and soybeans end up as well. And we have that breather going on while we otherwise still respect this bullish trend that we've been in. It extends back from the start of the month, the bullish August crop report, the crop tour findings, and then those lower production ideas being still paired with a bullish optimism about demand.
Joe, if I had told you at the start of the summer that at the end of August we would have seen the price for corn at this lofty level that we hadn't seen in 3 years, would you have believed me?
I would have thought that it would, if we got here, it would have been on a larger, more significant crop disaster, right? I mean, and you can't say that to somebody who suffers like in the Western Corn Belt, the Central and Southern Plains. It really is a crop disaster in many places. So in part, the market is respecting that, but not to the degree that you'd see even in these pared back yield ideas in the low 170s. That would still add for corn a lot of supply onto last year's record 17 billion bushel crop. For soybeans, we're still talking about generally the potential for a record yield there. So that's somewhat surprising. And so I'd also think that there would be other items on demand. Now, we did have the favorable biofuel policy developments. We've got to wait, though. Will that reverse itself? Some fear about what the government could announce by the end of the month on small refinery exemptions. So that's still outstanding. And then on China, okay, we've got that mix. I would have said if we had corn futures above $5, it's because China's buying. And well, they have been buying, but they've been buying soybeans, and that purchase interest has not yet spilled over into corn and wheat. So if anything, that's a wild card of why we could continue to go higher and even to reach some of these loftier projections that are now being thrown out there, including the $6 handle for corn. So somewhat surprising strength overall. And now we're thinking more about not only why we got here, but now what to do about it.
And speaking of those Chinese soybean buys, Joe, do you think this is the same story we have seen recently where China could be using these as leverage for those talks at the end of September between President Trump and President Xi?
That may well be the case, that they're saying, look, goodwill, that we are buying as we previously promised, but they also leave open still room to negotiate, to have a bargaining chip in that, like mentioned, China has not been buying other agricultural commodities, even though they recently promised to do so, that $17 billion plus in addition to the soybean purchases. So we've got the soybean purchases, and now that will be a very key part of this upcoming meeting with Xi Jinping coming over to the U.S. in late September, whether or not they're ready to buy other crops, U.S. corn, sorghum, U.S. wheat, certainly a big part of the open question regarding China.
Your local radio station brings you the local news you depend on. The Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network complements that with ag news, weather, and market updates tailored for Iowa's farmers. Together, we deliver the best of both worlds, local connection and industry expertise. It's all to keep you connected with the heartbeat of the heartland. The Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, connecting rural Iowa with the news that matters to you.
Back on Iowa Ag Matters, and we've been enjoying Mark's conversation with the Attorney General and the Associate Attorney General here the last couple of days. And today they're going to be wrapping up that conversation, talking about those egg prices. We saw them skyrocket a few years back and seeing how that's settled down.
I'm joined today here at the Iowa State Fair by Attorney General of the United States, Todd Blanche, and Associate Attorney General of the United States, Stanley Woodward, with the egg prices. Is that showing that, I guess, the positive side of things, how quickly things can kind of turn around, where we did have egg prices that were very high in the grocery store? But again, it was a lot of external factors playing into that, the big one being bird flu, and a lot of birds had to be cold because of that, and it affected the egg numbers. But here we are just a little bit later, and things have turned around in quite a hurry. Does that kind of show that, yes, you may see that immediate price shock, but there are things happening in the background working towards getting a better end result?
Yeah, I think it absolutely does. I mean, look, a year ago, maybe 18 months ago, the sky was falling because egg prices had soared so high. Then we got to a point where we were concerned that egg prices had fallen too low and we were going to put our egg producers out of business. What it shows is that when the federal government is working, we get results. And President Trump and AG Blanche and this administration have been so incredibly transparent. We have been speaking out about all of the ways in which we are working for the people. We got right to it, and we saw an immediate decrease in egg prices. We can't take full credit for it. Of course, great partnership with Secretary Rollins, but we got there, and we look forward to working with the egg producers moving forward so that they can have a healthy, sustainable business as well.
Attorney General Blanche, is there anything else you'd like to add for our viewers, our listeners here in the state of Iowa, our Iowa farmers, as it relates to the Department of Justice and anything you're working on as it relates to farming in general?
So the only thing I'll say, which I've said a couple of times today, but I want to make sure Iowans hear this, is that the federal government in D.C. is wholly and completely focused on the challenges that Iowans face and that ranchers and farmers are facing right now. So when we're here, that's true, and we're here because of that challenge. But when we're in D.C., This is a conversation that's happening in the Oval Office with President Trump, with the Commerce Secretary, with Agriculture Secretary, with Interior, with myself, with Chairman Grassley, with the Senate. And so we are not standing idly by and watching this problem. We're fixing this problem. And so that does not mean that the problem is fixed. I think the transparent answer and what we've been talking about is that there's a lot that goes into that. But we are working hard on it every day, and we're going to keep on doing that. And I expect you're going to see results. You're going to see results like what we saw with the egg challenge that we had a year and a half ago, and that now is really actually a thing of the past.
He is Attorney General Todd Blanche and also Associate Attorney General Stanley Woodward, my guest here today. Gentlemen, thanks so much for stopping by our booth here at the Iowa State Fair. We really appreciate your time.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Ethan Smith, and I've been a certified crop advisor in Iowa for about 6 years. The Iowa CCA program is valuable to me because it helps keep me informed on new topics and research around the industry, including soils, insects, diseases, and much more. It's also a great way to network with others around the state and beyond. Iowa is known for its crops, and that's why we're here. To learn more about becoming a certified crop advisor, visit iowacca.org.
In rural Iowa, we know you're sold on your local radio station. The Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network partners with local Iowa stations to deliver the latest in agriculture news, including grain elevator prices, market reports, and ag policy news. Trusted local voices, trusted ag content. This message is brought to you by your friends at the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, where Iowa Ag matters.
It's time to run down those basis bids for you here on Iowa Ag Matters on this Thursday. I'm Dustin Huffman. We have a couple elevators now making the switch to the December new crop corn contract for their basis. We will announce those when we get to them. Otherwise, assume that they're still on September. ADM Burlington, 48 cents under on December corn. They're at $4.86. Soybeans, 15 cents under. They're at $12.45. Cargill and Eddyville, 12 cents under on corn, $4.99 for the cash bid. New Co-op Algona, 28 cents under on corn, $4.83. Soybeans, 15 cents under at $12.45 for the cash price. Ag State Sheldon, 20 cents under on corn, $4.91. Soybeans, 25 cents under, $12.35. Ag State Elta, 26 cents under on corn, $4.85. Soybeans, 20 cents under at $12.40. At Cargill Cedar Rapids, they're 9 cents under on corn, $5.02. Soybeans, 20 cents over. They're at $12.80 for the cash bid. Five Star Co-op Nashua, 32 cents under on corn, $4.79. Soybeans, 20 cents under at $12.40. Lincoln Way Energy Nevada, 2 cents under on the December corn contract at $5.32 for the cash bid. ADM Des Moines, a nickel over on soybeans. They're at $12.65 for their cash price. New Co-op Red Oak, 21 cents under on corn, $4.90. Soybeans even at $12.60. Mid-Iowa Cooperative Green Mountain, 42 cents under on corn, $4.69. Soybeans, 40 cents under at $12.20. New Co-op Sheraton, 25 cents under on corn, $4.86. Soybeans a dime under, $12.50. Walk-On Feed Ranch, 54 cents under on corn, $4.57. Soybeans, 64 cents under at $11.96. New Co-op Glidden, 28 cents under on corn, $4.83. Soybeans even at $12.60. Innovative Ag Farley, 46 cents under on corn, $4.65. Soybeans, 69 cents under at $11.91. And at Cargill Muscatine, they're 22 cents under on corn at $4.89. Soybeans, 20 cents under at $12.40, and they'll be closed September 2nd through the 4th. Cash, corn, and soybean bids are subject to change without notice. Always check with your local elevator when making sales to obtain the most recent price. That's been a check of your basis numbers here on Iowa Ag Matters. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Dive into the dynamic international ag industry with the World of Agriculture, your go-to source for global ag news made relevant for Iowa's producers and consumers, right here on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. From the latest updates on crops in South America to critical information on overseas trade relations, we cover all the factors that impact our ag economy. Tune into your local Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network affiliate every Monday through Friday for fresh, insightful episodes that keep you informed and connected to the broader agricultural landscape.
You're listening to Iowa Ag Matters, and it's time for Dustin's conversation to continue with Mark Mueller of Iowa Corn as they talk about water quality issues here in the state of Iowa. Here's Dustin.
And another thing we brought up, talked about those ingredients we need, especially nitrogen. That's one that's getting a lot of attention, obviously. There's concern about the watersheds and stuff like that. Now, one thing I think we can help, we hear that side of it, and we know that things have to be fixed. And the same token is we need to make sure we're talking about the work that farmers are doing to fix the problems. These problems didn't occur overnight. They can't be fixed overnight. But in the same token is this is also another prime example of showing people that we're not just going to put things on willy-nilly at the cost they're going for, but talk about what some of these farmers are doing and some of the work you're seeing among members to help offset these issues and help be more responsible for our neighbors downstream.
Okay. Let me first start by saying that nitrates occur naturally in the soil. There's already nitrates there. They're not always available to the corn plant, so we put a little bit extra on. I will say that we grow twice as much corn with the same amount of fertilizer or less and the same amount of chemicals or less than my father did 50 years ago. He probably was happy to get 100 bushel per acre corn then. Now I better get 200 bushels per acre using no more inputs and probably fewer than my father did. So we're more environmentally sensitive than we used to be. My practices in my farm are that I use cover crops, which help tie up nitrogen and the other fertilizer inputs. As long as there's a living plant there, it'll grab onto that fertilizer and it'll hold it in place until the next crop comes along. So that's cover crops. I am a no-till farmer, and every time you disturb the soil, you lose inputs. The soil loses its organic matter. It doesn't hang on to the inputs as easily. So no-till farming and cover crops are a great way to help keep your nutrients in place. I would also say that on my own farm, I put in a wetlands. Now that wetlands was expensive, and I did it with public money, and I had to give up some of my own land to put that wetlands there. But I used county and state and federal dollars to put in that wetlands, and I am now cleaning up the water that runs off my farm and goes downstream to, in my case, eventually the Cedar River. Farmers are very conscious about our water because we live here. We live amidst where we work. So we want to keep the water and the chemical usage as low as possible. And I will also say, as I mentioned before, it's naturally occurring in the soil. And you also have municipal runoff.
Right.
I think the state of Iowa this is a question for Mike Naig, but I think it was about 2013, 2012 that the state of Iowa came up with a nutrient reduction strategy.
Right.
And the EPA in DC pointed to the other states and said, look at what Iowa's doing. They're doing it the right way. Follow their example. Their example is voluntary. Now, I will say that we're moving the needle. We're not moving it enough to suit some people, but as you said, we didn't get into this problem overnight, and we're not going to get out of it overnight. It's one of those things that farmers, though, are constantly aware of, and I see more and more of these conservation practices being adopted.
And that's good to hear. And, when you think about these cost share programs we talk to are set aside because, the faster you guys are able to get some money to help put that in, because it's not cheap, as you said, to do this. Without those cost share programs, you're talking about higher input costs. You're talking about higher fuel prices. You're talking about sometimes markets that are pretty volatile and you're not always getting what you need for it. So you add the cost into putting in cover crops or wetlands and all that. That would be almost crushing, or would be crushing to a lot of these operations. So having these cost share dollars available is a great way to help offset it, because the sooner you can do that, the sooner you can start getting those results.
If I had to pay for that wetland myself, and it cost almost $300,000, I would not have put it in much as I would like to have. So that's why it's important that we put in as many wetlands as we can. And once again, this is probably a Mike Naig question. There's probably a long waiting list of people, farmers lined up to get wetlands put on. And they are making the process more efficient, more cost-effective, batch building, doing a whole bunch of them. And I mentioned a wetland, but there's other practices as well. I've got grass waterways that help slow down the water. I don't have a buffers. Yeah, I do have buffer strips.
Okay.
Yeah. There's other practices as well, and farmers are adapting those. It's, once again, people would like us to just snap our fingers and problem solved, but...
And you guys would too.
Oh, hell yes.
Yes.
Because we live there, and farmers are probably the first people that see a problem, and they're the first ones that line up to fix it. I mean, if I see something that's broken, and it's not even my own. I have to restrain myself from going to fix it. I will say that there's people that advocate for regulation. Regulation does have a place, but regulation can also slow things down. If I had to get a permit to adopt a new practice set, I can see that permit process tying up years, before somebody finally gives me the okay. There is not a one-size-fits-all solution. And much as I'd love for there to be, the nutrient reduction strategy that Iowa came up with has about 24 different practices. Half of them that help phosphorus, half of them take care of nitrates. So there's not a one single thing that works. Every farm operation, every soil type is different. Whether it's the prairie pothole region in north central Iowa or my area, which is closer to the rolling areas in northeast Iowa, what practice works in one area doesn't work in the other. And regulations, I found, tend to promote one single solution, which might look good to somebody sitting at a desk in a government office, but in real life, it's the farmer who knows his land the best.
All right. Well, Mark, thank you so much for taking the time to visit with us, and enjoy Iowa Corn Day.
I will do so. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Ethan Smith, and I've been a certified crop advisor in Iowa for about 6 years. The Iowa CCA program is valuable to me because it helps keep me informed on new topics and research around the industry, including soils, insects, diseases, and much more. It's also a great way to network with others around the state and beyond. Iowa is known for its crops, and that's why we're here. To learn more about becoming a certified crop advisor, visit iowacca.org.
Your local radio station brings you the local news you depend on. The Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network complements that with ag news, weather, and market updates tailored for Iowa's farmers. Together, we deliver the best of both worlds, local connection and industry expertise. It's all to keep you connected with the heartbeat of the heartland. The Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, connecting rural Iowa with the news that matters to you.
This is the Midday Market Update on Iowa Ag Matters. I'm Mark Magnuson, joined at midday by John Heinberg of Total Farm Marketing. John, what's happening with the trade in the grains?
Yeah, it's been a bit of an interesting morning so far in the grain market. Started the day with some relatively heavy selling pressure across the marketplace, and then wheat's found its footing again. Wheat futures now trading double digits higher in the Chicago, 12, 13 cents higher all the way across the board in the KC wheat. Again, those Black Sea issues just continue to be a support underneath that that wheat market, just given the lack of exports coming out of that region. And the longer this goes, I think you see a little bit more anxiousness in terms of importers looking for wheat supplies and things along those lines. But again, it's a volatile market that's going to move quickly, headline driven. If there anything would come together on a peace talk or a ceasefire, you could see some of this war premium leave very, very fast. So that's going to be one of the things in the wheat market right now that's just going to be kind of hard to get a handle on. I think that's put some selling pressure into the row crops this morning, corn and soybeans. And also we did have some headlines out there from the EPA, and the White House is looking at some small finery exemptions and need to make a ruling by the end of the month on those. And the White House is pushing to get those refinery exemptions through, which would do some impact to the biofuel blends that the the EPA has put out there on some of those targets. I think that was a big factor that weighed on the corn and soybean markets this morning. We saw the weakness in soybean oil again this morning to start the session, but bean oil's found at least a little bit of footing that's helped put beans at least back in positive territory. Corn just really has never found any true drive today, but it's just consolidating after a pretty good day yesterday. So we'll have to see how things kind of close here today and see where we are from there.
What's happening on the livestock side of the trade?
I'm not saying it's over, but it's really nice to see some strong gains in the cattle market. It's been just such a rough go the last few weeks here in this cattle market. It seemed we get negative headline after negative headline after negative headline. Now, cash trade's still softer than last week, but seeing some of that 18 to 20 trade getting done at this time frame. Maybe the weakness in grains helped that feeder cattle out a little bit this morning, but right now we're trading $2 to $3 across the board in live cattle, $5 plus higher for the majority of the contracts contracts except the front months and feeders. So it might be just one of those windows where this thing just got cheap enough and some money wants to flow back into the cattle market.
Joslyn Plant Cattle Producers, we have a delivery solution for you. Call Legacy Beef Co-op, where members market cattle through a processor-negotiated real-time formula grid. This grid includes a base price premium for members and offers market protection guardrails. Join now for a one-time co-op membership fee of $62.50 per unit. For more information, call Legacy Beef Co-op at 531-375-6559 or email James Timmerman at james@legacybeefcoop.com. September corn down 2 cents at $5.12 even. September soybeans up 1/4 cent at $12.54.5. September soybean meal up $1.50 at $3.30.20. September soybean oil up 9 cents at $67.31. Chicago wheat up 10 3/4 at $7.41 1/4. Minneapolis wheat is up 8 cents at $7.30. Kansas City hard red wheat up 11 1/2 at $8.03 1/2. On the Merc, October live cattle up 260 at $213.38. September feeder cattle up 478 at $323.78. October lean hogs down 33 cents at $80.58. That was a check of the midday markets on Iowa Ag Matters. I'm Mark Magnuson.
Well, we are back into the marketplace now here on Iowa Ag Matters. Going to talk about what's going on in those livestock markets. Cattle getting a little bit of a jump here today. Hogs under still some pressure. Mark Magnuson has more with Joe Camp of Comstock.
What's happening on the livestock side of the trade?
Well, reverse of the grains, just when it feels like corn, soybeans, wheat, they're only going to go higher. That was kind of the feeling we were getting, the mood out there for livestock and cattle futures in particular, that we're only going to continue to spiral lower, that we still got a ways to go, even as far as we've come down to meet last year's lows, which interestingly enough, came, of course, after we put in a high before President Trump commented about having a deal to lower beef prices. Of course, that was just the latest negative headline for cattle futures on Friday morning that rocked the market. But we have now some semblance of cooler heads prevailing, a possible subsiding of the speculative washout, and then a return of, say, fundamental buyers who want to expect that the board can converge back to a more resilient cash trade. Now, the cash has come down quite considerably, but we otherwise have the incentive out there for packers to maybe bottom out those bids because of the strength in beef. And that's still a possibility into September, into the rest of the summer, into shortly Labor Day, that we could still have that fundamental strength out there from demand to help turn this market around. But turning around so far, it has in a higher cattle trade this morning.
Joe, as the border reopens and the rollout continues, is that something that will continue to weigh on the marketplace as each port opens, or is that more of a headline at the start of the process and then things kind of settle down a little bit?
That might be the case, that we do have an impact on the market as these announcements come out, like they here recently did this week with the USDA saying it will be now another 30 days. We're going to get it was expected, the Santa Teresa port in New Mexico opened, that being a previously substantial inflow point for feeder cattle. But you get to eventually where after they announce their timeline for the Texas ports as well, then it's already digested and we can feel like we're going to then assess what are the actual numbers, because the thought has been, okay, that's the headline shock of it, or another reason for speculators to be spooked out of the market. But then we can assess what is still likely to be pinched numbers coming from south of the border, and still, no hurry, unfortunately, in turning a corner to rebuild this U.S. herd, and that going back to something that's been more friendly as opposed to the negative headlines.
In rural Iowa, we know you're sold on your local radio station. The Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network partners with local Iowa stations to deliver the latest in agriculture news, including grain elevator prices, market reports, and ag policy news. Trusted local voices, trusted ag content. This message is brought to you by your friends at the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, where Iowa Ag matters.
This is Iowa Ag Matters, and it is time now for Riley Smith's conversation with Dave Muhlbauer. He is the running mate for Rob Sand for the Iowa governor's position, and Riley spoke with Dave about the issues impacting Iowa's agriculture.
And I'm visiting right now with Dave Muhlbauer. He is a candidate for lieutenant governor, running with Rob Sand in this year's governor's race. Dave, it's great to have you stop by. I know that this is a good opportunity here at the fair to talk a lot of ag issues with constituents at the fair. I know you guys have been around quite a bit. What have you been hearing for those top ag issues?
Sure, and Riley, I just want to say thanks for having me. This is awesome. I mean, anytime you can be at the state fair, it's always a good time. But yeah, I mean, I grew up Western Iowa, farming. It's been my livelihood. Family farm operation. Big fan. A lot of my uncles, cousins, all farm. Some that you know.
Yep.
But you know, people are concerned. We've been traveling all over the state. I've been going to a lot of agriculture events. I was up in Sanborn, Iowa. I was at Iowa Cover Crop in Jefferson. Just meeting with farmers and ag leaders all across the state. You know, people are very concerned. I mean, and I farm myself. So, you know, you look at what our commodity prices are today, our input costs, whether it's fuel, fertilizer, equipment, parts. You know, it's a tough go. And people are very concerned about the direction of agriculture. And for Rob and I mean, we know that a strong ag economy means a strong economy for Iowa because it's the backbone of Iowa. So, I mean, we want to hear what people are saying and those concerns. And like I say, I live it every day.
So when we talk about those top issues, I know that just the rural economy in general is a big thing. You know, rural healthcare fits into that, but when the rural economy is strong, you can keep those businesses, those communities thriving. Just with farm economy in general, farmers really kind of taking a hit there. What are some of the things that you're talking about and kind of pushing to make sure that those farmers are able to live comfortably and continue their lifestyle?
Riley, I'm glad you brought that up because one thing that we just rolled out this week was our Opportunities for All plan. And we had a coalition of 50 different farmers and ag leaders across the state. One of them that was a huge supporter of it was Secretary Bill Sack. It truly addresses a lot of our issues and expanding renewable fuels, developing an office for rural prosperity. I mean, really dialing in on our rural communities and our agriculture and what we're doing, you know, in Iowa to not just help us survive, but thrive. And that plan is geared towards doing that in Iowa to boost our overall economy.
And then, of course, I mentioned earlier the rural healthcare side of things. We're seeing a lot more of those healthcare deserts pop up in Iowa where you might have to go 30 plus minutes to be able to get potentially life-saving care. When it comes to your guys' plan to not only retain those professionals here in rural Iowa, but make sure that they have the proper funding as well, that they can do the things they need to do. What are you guys planning on that side of things?
Well, and I'm telling you, I'm on our hospital board in Manning. I've been on there for 6-7 years. Kids don't say 6.
I know.
but about that time, and I've seen it directly just on our board. You know, we do everything we can in rural Manning, Iowa as a critical access hospital. And, you know, we see the challenge. I've been on the board to see the challenges firsthand that we face. And we need those hospitals in rural areas. Things happen on the farm. You know, it's a dangerous profession we live in, and just having those places for our communities is huge to our community. A lot of times they're our biggest employers in our small towns. I mean, some of our biggest utility users. One thing that we talk about right off the bat, we've seen the struggles and the challenges and that the privatization of the MCOs has not worked. And that's something that we talk about reversing on day one and getting healthcare working for our communities and for the people they serve.
Dave, thank you so much for taking the time to visit, and enjoy the rest of the Iowa State Fair.
Riley, thank you for having me.
Hi, my name is Ethan Smith, and I've been a certified crop advisor in Iowa for about 6 years. The Iowa CCA program is valuable to me because it helps keep me informed on new topics and research around the industry, including soils, insects, diseases, and much more. It's also a great way to network with others around the state and beyond. Iowa is known for its crops, and that's why we're here. To learn more about becoming a certified crop advisor, visit iowacca.org.
In rural Iowa, we know you're sold on your local radio station. The Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network partners with local Iowa stations to deliver the latest in agriculture news, including grain elevator prices, market reports, and ag policy news. Trusted local voices, trusted ag content. This message is brought to you by your friends at the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, where Iowa Ag matters.
Well, Dustin, of course, we are getting ready for a big week next week in the Farm Progress Show. And as we look at the forecast, it could be a little bit toasty, at least to start out the week. And dealing with some of the weather issues aside, we are certainly looking forward to a great time at Farm Progress.
Yeah, it's going to be quite warm. There's no doubt about it. They're talking temps that will be ranging in those mid to upper 80s to low 90s throughout most of next week. Thank goodness we have an air-conditioned media center there at the Farm Progress Show. But, of course, good chance to get out there and get out and about and talk with some of these ag folks about what's new in some of the technology. Thanks to Mark, thanks to Riley, and, of course, thanks to you for listening. We'll see you back here again tomorrow. You're listening to the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network.